Hello, everybody. It's Karen Marie Shelton, and I am here today with a new segment, a new live segment that's going to be every week on. This is Thursday, right? Every week on Thursdays at 2 o'clock Central Time, 3 Eastern. And the very first inaugural guest I have today with me is Wendy the Druid. This is a series that's going to be, it's based on the Collective of Many, which is publication on Substack, and it's part of Wendy the Druid, who's here today as the very first guest. And so I'm going to let Wendy go ahead. I'm very honored to be doing this and having this series of lives, which Wendy invited me to do. Thank you, Wendy. So go ahead, Wendy, and tell everybody who you are. And we all know you're amazing, but go ahead and give us the little blurb.
So I am a now 53-year-old trans woman who has gone through a relatively deep transformation. And I am a druid. People ask me all the time, gosh, are you a real druid? Do you turn into animals and stuff? No, I don't. But I am a certified bard, ovet, and druid, which means I know all about vocal traditions, and I know all about herbal healing, and I know all about spiritual healing and spiritual advice. So I am a member of the OBODs, the Order of Bards, Ovets, and Druids, which means I'm an actual certified druid. And I create my space, Wendy the Druid, as a publication to inspire that journey and my unconditional love for family, of which I consider all members of my publication to be family. So there you go.
Perfect. Wonderful. And we have some wonderful people joining us, including the wonderful Brandon. Hi, Brandon. Hello, everybody else who's joined us today. So my first question for you, because the whole purpose of this is to let people know who come to the collective the background and the history and the inspiration of the writers. And you're the queen writer. You started the collective with Sarah. So my first question is, what the hell are you currently scribbling, and why does it matter to you?
So, I mean, pretty much the daily drive has been a druid meditation, which I have been doing those since for a very long time. And those are emotional focused pieces that pick a couple of emotions and talk through how to compartmentalize those things and ask you yourself pertinent questions about how to deal with them. Then usually about the middle of the day, my two big piece runs hit. And that's either a geopolitical article and or a faith-based analysis article. I will tell you though, and then at the end of the day, there is a fiction piece, and the fiction piece is about the fabulous Sanctuary Bar, which that piece is entirely queer, LGBTQIA plus focused. And so the purposes of those stories is to build community. Now, I will tell you that what I am currently working on is a minor divergent shift. I'm actually going to start shifting away from purely geopolitical pieces and more clearly talk about geopolitical pieces as it relates to the queer community and how it affects the queer community. That doesn't mean that I'm going to stop reporting on geopolitical things, but I'm going to focus on the effects that the queer community is having as a result of the political situation that's going forward. So that's what I'm currently working on.
Okay, well, that's fabulous. And by the way, just a side note, at least two of your pieces appear every night on the Collective of Many publications, and they're amazing. My second question, which topics make you lose sleep in a good way? And why do you keep pulling them? Why do they keep pulling you back to write about them? What is it that grabs you?
So I really like the core essence of the thing that draws me to write is spirituality, my own spirituality, and community. I thrive on community. I run the publication like a giant family. I want people to come and read the content that I'm writing because I think that it benefits them and I think that they would learn from it and I think that they would enjoy it. And so, like, literally, my two favorite things to write are the meditations and then the queer bar story at the end of the day. The current round of spiritual guidance articles that are being written, those are purely academic, and much of that writing I'd already done previously in my academic life. And then the geopolitical pieces, those are the ones I forced myself to write, um, because I feel like it's important to get that message out to people. But what I find is that I become emotionally affected by writing purely geopolitical discussion. And so I can't do that as much. Now, that said, my my articles at 5 p.m., the stories at 5 p.m., I'm drawn to writing about those characters constantly because as a writer, I love the characters in my stories. I will tell you, for instance, today's story does not actually happen in the bar. It actually happens in a hospital. And it is a very painful, very visceral, very emotional piece. And I cried a whole bunch writing it, but it's about something that I feel like is important. And I involved my characters in it. And my characters grow as a result of it happening. So that's what draws me to the writing.
Well, I personally am a fan of your daily meditation. I read it every day. It's really wonderful. I don't know how you do one every day. I mean, it seems like so much that you pull so much out into those and put so much into them. So that's one of my favorites. But I also like your bar stories. They're really good too. Okay. So if you could dump all the boring rules of writing and just throw them away, what wild direction would you take with your stories?
Yeah, so I've thought about that, and actually, people have approached me about that before and asked me if I would variable the setting in my writing. And so, if I had to throw like all of it out, I and there were no rules whatsoever, I can't tell you that I wouldn't take like the bar story characters and put them into random different settings uh,
Oh.
to go around. So, like, someone has asked me, um, Wendy, you should write a D&D or a Pathfinder campaign and use your characters in that campaign. And I can't tell you that I haven't. Holy shit, that would be a brilliant idea. God, what would that look like? Or a science fiction setting, or an early era like 1915 era, 1820 era piece. Like if I could just hop around all of those genres with my characters, um, if I would do that, and I've thought about it. The interesting thing is that very early in my life, I did actually build a many pages long campaign setting for tabletop role playing games that yeah, Brandon, I would totally make your character a dragon. Um, and so I wrote a campaign years and years ago when I was a Dungeons and Dragons player, and so um, my partner uh, Aubrey, we all know Aubrey's name is Kira, but my partner Aubrey has told me you should publish that, and I think people would read it, and I've thought about it, and so yeah, no rules. I just hop genres all the way around until I found one that people wanted to read.
So you're doing all these things, you've got the collective of many pieces that you specifically focus on. You do your meditation, you're doing your bar characters, you're doing the other things that you're doing. I was really enjoying the because you do the history of the queer space. I really enjoyed that. What's the biggest creative roadblock you've hit lately? And how the fuck do you smash through it?
Um, my emotional state. Um, so when I write, like the geopolitical articles that I write, I tend to write those at 2 in the morning. And
Gosh.
they happen at 2 in the morning because I wake up and the insomnia hits and I have to convince myself to go to sleep. And so the what I do is I start flipping through the news on my phone, and then I've got my iPad or whatever is I'm voice to texting what I'm reading. Um, and so, when I get up in the morning, the geopolitical articles, like I voice to text, I basically brain dumped, 8,000 words in a voice to text session. And so then I look at it and I'm like, how can I put this into words that make sense? Because they did not make sense at 2 in the morning when I was verbal diarrhea injecting my devices with random voice to text data. And so the biggest block is I whatever it is, does that make me angry? Do I get emotional about it? If I get emotional about it, that's really hard. So, for example, the story that I wrote today, it took me 3.5 hours to write it because I got like 20 or 30 minutes into it, and then I started crying because it's an emotional subject. And then I had stopped for a minute. I'm like, okay, I can't do this. Gotta back away. Came back 10 minutes later, sat back down. Okay, I'm ready to start writing again. I'm turning away. I'm turning away. And then I'm like, oh my God, no, this is. And then I start crying again and I get all emotionally wrecked. I'm like, okay, I gotta stop for 10 minutes. So let me get up and walk away. So then I do that and then I come back and sit down. So yeah, what emotional state I am in or how that emotion affects me, um, is where I run into my most difficult. Like, okay, I can't write for a while. I have to stop. Um, but I have an analytical brain, so if I lean into that, sometimes it works a little bit better. But yeah, if I'm angry or sad or um, some other visceral, strong emotion, yeah, that stops the creative juices from flowing, and then I find I can't write at all.
But it sounds like you understand that, and you have a really good way of dealing with it, so it works for you, which is great,
Yes.
and it's very good information to share because some people get stuck and they don't know how to get unstuck. So that
Right.
was very, very helpful. Um, who or what inspires you so much that you can't stop talking about it? But, you've already talked about you're so inspired by like, when you're flipping through at 2 o'clock in the morning, things grab you and inspire you. Is there something bigger or something central to your life, some theme that inspires you that you can't stop thinking about it or writing about it or talking about it?
Oh, that's easy. Humanism. I For the entirety of my life, I will forever be a humanist and a satirist. I think Voltaire was a brilliant writer. Jonathan Swift, in the same capacity, brilliant writer. Um, and those elements of humanism and the embracing of humanism become uh, become central in my writing journey. Um, and so, James for Brandon's question, yeah, I start reading. If like really like if I get hard block, I just start reading Voltaire or Swift or Emerson or Thoreau, and when I'll get like 2 or 3 paragraphs into something that any of those four have written, and then immediately, okay, I'm back to where I need to be. Um, I mean, I laugh about this. But my favorite Voltaire story is he's dying, he's on his deathbed, and the priest comes in to read him his last rites, and Voltaire says, "Father, this is no time to be making enemies. Go away," because um, uh, because Voltaire was as a humanist, was likely very agnostic or completely anti-religion. Um,
Yes, well, Brandon wants to know if maybe your muse is Taylor Swift, or maybe it's Pick It Off. So, do you want to comment on that?
no, I'm not. I am not a Swiftie. People wish I were a Swiftie. I'm not a Swiftie.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. When you're typing away like crazy, um, does it does it fuel your imagination? Like when you were talking about, you're doing all this, you're not really typing away because you're doing the voice dictation or narration, correct?
Right.
So by the time you're typing, you've already got it worked out in your head. Is that right?
Well, from a geopolitical perspective, yes. Here's the thing. The fictional pieces, so the queer space pieces, and even the meditations. Almost all of the Gaelic that's written in the meditations is pre-written. Um, the descriptive texts, however, for the meditations, that's entirely free flowing. And then the 5 p.m. stories are entirely free flowing. Um, so when I sit down for the 5 o'clock story article or whatever, I just start typing it, and until my emotional state changes in a way that forces me to stop typing, um, suddenly 4,000 words appear and 30 minutes disappears.
Wow.
It's 30 minutes later, and I have it all written, and I'm like, holy
Wow,
shit.
that's fantastic.
Okay, that's gosh. Where do I don't know. I mean, I literally just start, and I type like 80 to 100 words a minute or whatever. And so, I mean, I'm shotgunning away. And my editor, the editor of Wendy the Druid, my lovely friend Miranda, uh,
Oh. Hmm.
invariably, especially if I question whether or not I wrote something that was like not in a great state or whatever, I always just tell her, I mean, Miranda, go read this and tell me what you think. And so, like today, for instance, I had to read today's story, and she literally said, "Okay, Wendy, I got to this line in the story, and I couldn't stop crying."
Oh,
And the line is, "Hospital rules were written by people who never need chosen family to survive." And she's like, I read that, and I picked up the phone, I called her, and I'm like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "Oh yeah. I got down to the article where Phoenix hit the panic button on their phone, and I tell you, I had to step away." And so I told her, I'm like, "But did you find any mistakes? Were there any grammatical errors that did it all flow right?" And she's like, "It flows right no matter what, you know." I very rarely, when you do, I actually experience you have a writing flow problem. I think you do really well with that. It's just you hit some really very hard topics. And so,
yes,
um,
you really, really do. Which is a good segue into the next question.
oh,
Is
excellent.
there a piece that you've written in the past at any time during your writing career that when you think about it, you still cringe or you still go, oh my God, I can't believe I wrote that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, yeah. The entirety of the biography that I tell people never to read. Don't ever read it. And I say that, and I want to be clear. The reason that I tell people not to read it is the biography shows a portion of my psyche that, from my perspective, is difficult for me to think that other people would want to approach. Because as a trans woman, I think I have a very soft and genteel and kind approach to people. Um, but the thing that you get when you read the biography is that it was not always that way, and that very early in my life I did some very bad things, and I made some very bad choices, and I hurt people in my life at that time that were people I would never have wanted to hurt. um my child Gizmo and her mom. I did things to both of those individuals that I have a very difficult time reconciling, me dealing with my trauma and me dealing with the aspects of my trauma that meant that I behaved in ways when I was younger that affected them in negative ways. And I never wanted to do that. Um,
Well, most readers would think we're demented if we wrote everything in our heads. That's what Brandon said.
yes, I would completely. Brandon, here's the thing. I think that H.P. Lovecraft wrote everything in his head, and most of what he wrote was pretty fucked up.
Yeah, I would agree. I would really agree. So it's interesting that you mentioned your biography. Or is that what it's called? Is it your autobiography or your biography?
Autobiography, although I
I've
don't
read it
like.
and I think it's amazing. I mean, when I first met you, you said don't read it. So of course, when somebody tells me not to do something, I immediately go do it. Um, when you're not busy hosting all the lives you do, and by the way, I try to come to as many as possible, but you have so many. I mean, I'm just in awe of how many you do. I mean, after I do one or two at the end of the week, I'm like laying on the side of the road panting. I cannot believe how many you do, but you do your lives, you do all the writing, you oversee the collective of many, which Sarah does an amazing job on. And you help all the writers, you're there for people, you have your community. I subscribe. And by the way, if you are not a subscriber to any of Wendy's works or community or anything, please subscribe. Do you want to put up a link? Where is Craigster when we need him with his links, his magic links?
Yeah, I, I'm gonna have to have a little chat with Craig
Yeah, he's
because.
been MIA, so we need him. But when you're not doing all these things, do you have anything you do for fun? I mean, I know you go to Waffle House and you know,
Right. I'm very much a mother. I am the mother in my house. So I love my kitchen. Um, I I will forever be a video game person, so I will always play video games with my kids. I'm a board game person. I am a card player. Um, I'm the one you want to go to Vegas with because of my weird analytical brain. Um, and so if I'm not playing cards or board game, video games or cooking in my kitchen or doing other um, uh, matronly, housewifey like activities, then that means I'm writing. And so the culmination of all of those means that as long as I'm doing all of those things, then, um, I'm relatively happy.
well, listen, if you can come up with any kind of formula that helps me win the lottery, I'll definitely split it with you.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because my partner and I talked about that this morning, and she asked me, she said, Wendy, if we hit the lottery for $1 billion, what would you do? And I was like, well,
Probably
uh,
not much different, right?
well, actually, no. Here's the thing. I would easily crash about 50 million immediately in the first month, and here's why. So I'd set up you know, stipend trust funds for all my kids.
Now, does Brandon count as a kid?
Oh yeah, Brandon's definitely my kid. So I would set up trust for all my kids. So then I would go out and complete over however a lot of money to complete my transgender
Right.
surgery journey. With the rest, I get all of my surgeries done. I don't have that many left, but I still have some that have to get
Yeah, that would be good. That would be a good investment.
done. And then I would open up the sanctuary bar. I would find
Oh,
a
with all the
place.
characters. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And I will tell you this. I would do it in two places. Um, I would do it in two places. I would do it in the two queerest, gayest, most trans friendly places that I could find. And those wouldn't necessarily need to be in the US, by the way. And that's what I would do. Um, is is do that. And so yeah, I would open up the sanctuary bar. And here's the thing, I have to tell you, I'd have to find a trans guy named Miguel and make him the bartender. And he'd have to have either a sister or a partner or somebody that he knew named Adela who could run the kitchen in the back. I mean, I literally would try to replicate um the sanctuary bar in such a way that when I walked in, it would make those stories come alive because
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing.
um,
By the way, do your adopted children, whether you've adopted them or not, they're
yeah,
still bugging you to
uh,
be adopted? How does that go?
yes. So you have mentioned this before. Um, I will tell you, I have 14 chosen children. I've been a stand-in mom and a functioning mom for a large number of individuals. Now, people ask me, well, Wendy, what does that mean? How does that work? And so, like 5 years ago, when I started my trans journey, one of the things that I did was um, I held a brunch at my house. And so at the time, I was going to a support group for trans persons. And so I walked into the support group one night and I told everybody, hey, I live in Ansley Park in Atlanta. And basically, the long and short of it is this: uh, I'm hosting a brunch at my house at 11 o'clock on Saturday, and here's how it works: just come to my house, bring something to drink for yourself, and eat my food. And so,
Lovely. That's lovely.
yeah, many of my trans sisters or whatever, and fellow trans person support group people were like, well, do we have to bring you money? No, no, no. I'm cooking up all the food. You get to eat it for free. Just bring something to drink and then hang out, and we can commune with each other over what's going on. And so those brunches went on for a year. And so like I would cook 3 crock pots of chili. I would, you know, bake up ham and cheese sandwiches. Um, I would do like numerous food containers of homemade pesto, pasta, and so forth. And
Oh
I
my
had
God,
just
I'm getting so hungry.
and I had like gluten free options and everything. And so yeah, like that was my Saturday thing because at that time I wasn't with Aubrey and I were not together. So I was living alone, and that made living alone a lot easier when I could anticipate that people would be coming on Saturday. And then, yeah, it would be like people would show up at 11 o'clock, and then like that'd be like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. People would be sitting around my coffee table playing games, and people would be sitting in my dining room table playing games, and there would be music playing, and people would be socializing and having a good time. And so that was the thing, and that so people ask me this why it is I care about the Wendy the Druid as a publication. The energy that I use to do those brunches is the same energy that I use for the publication because I want to build that family in exactly the same way and with the exact same passion, which is what I do. And so that's why, like, all of the people, like all of my paid subscribers can pick up the phone and call me. I
Oh, I didn't
have
know that.
yet
I'm
to
a
run
paid
into a paid
subscriber.
subscriber that has never said, no, I would never call you, but
I'm a paid subscriber, even though I'm not officially adopted. So I guess I can call you anytime. Which reminds me, Wendy, you said to me when we started this series that you wanted to keep it at 30 minutes.
yep.
And we are right. I mean, we're a minute away. Is it a minute or 2 minutes away? And I have a ton more questions to ask you. So here's the thought. Would you be willing to come back again for a second part to answer all these
Oh,
questions?
no, no, no. This is the first time around. You can go over.
What?
This is the first time around. You can go over.
Oh, I can. Okay, good, good. Because there's so many cool questions. If you had to pick one line from anything you've written, your work that you feel defines you, what would that one line be? What would you want it to be on your tombstone or on your plaque or, after you're gone? What is that one line?
Oh, that's easy. Let me reference the line um, because yeah, there's a that one's pretty. That's a pretty powerful one to that's a pretty powerful one to talk about. So let me find it really quick. Oh, I've probably got that in my proton ball. I know I have it in my proton bullet, so I'm gonna go look. Give
You
me
know, if somebody asked me that question, I would have no idea.
Oh, no, no. Oh, yeah,
I would
I
have
have
no
a very
idea.
clear yeah, I'm very I'm very organized that way. So yeah, here we go.
Now, Brandon would his line would probably be, "Brandon Elridge is so gay, and he loves cats."
Um, oh, okay, download. Gosh, I'm gonna have to actually download something? That's crazy. Um,
That's a really good question. I just, personally, I'd probably have to go and cry in my room for an hour before I could figure it out.
so this is, uh, th this involves, a piece of literature that nobody has ever read because I've never published it. Um, but, um, so I'm just gonna read it.
Okay,
Um,
please.
I've been a son, I've been a fighter, a coward, a husband, a cheater, a friend, a monster. I've worn so many skins that sometimes I forget which one was real and which were costumes. Each mask was a stepping stone across a river of pain too deep to wade through directly. Each performance, another nail in a coffin of who I might have been if I had had the courage to face the hurricane that was facing me head on. My hands are calloused from clawing at identities that never fit right. My throat is raw from forcing out words that belonged to someone else, and I never understood why. Um, my story began with a child hiding and ends with a woman emerging. Everything between is the blood soaked, tear stained, joy speckled map of how we get from one point to another, from false to true, from half life to whole, from yellow plants with elastic waistbands to sundresses that spin in the springtime air. It is not clean. It is as messy as birth, complicated as death, and it is absolutely necessary that everyone experience it.
Took my breath away. That took my breath away. That is really beautiful. It makes me almost cry. It just sums up a whole lifetime in some beautiful they're not just some beautiful, it's beautiful, really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Of
I'm
course.
I'm in awe here a little bit. Um, hmm, how do I follow that up? That's so good. Okay, so you write all these beautiful things and you've experienced this incredible life, and some of it you say was not so good, and some of it has been really great. You've lived the highs, the lows, like you said, the line you just said. What do you do, because you are very public online? What do you do when you have haters? How do you handle that?
I have a very thick skin. Um, so, you know, you catch yourself in moments of sickening clarity. Um, and when you hear things like that, you say to yourself, I wish I didn't have to experience this. Um, and that those things would just be erased from the timeline in your life so that you wouldn't have to feel that devastation or that pain or that impact. And in that wish, that cruel, desperate wish, when you're younger, because you're much less able to deal with, you torture yourself more exquisitely than any medieval device could ever manage does to you. And each night you flay yourself open with knowledge of what you've turned into as a result of it. But the fact of the matter is, it's about owning that wreckage, and it's about owning that damage, and it's about saying, I really don't care. When I go into public spaces, the weekend was my birthday, and I went to my favorite Italian restaurant.
I knew that.
A-
Did you know I knew
And
that?
and so, um, I mean, I like to go there because the chicken marsala is really, really good, and the wine they serve is really, really good. But I still get looks, and people make sneers, and people see me, and they're ew, it's one of those things or whatever. And so I just don't, you know, I phase it out. Um, I I I'm not even conscious of it. And the rather hilarious thing is this: my youngest child,
Who
Charlie.
I adore her. If you don't wanna adopt me, then I get to adopt her. How's that for a deal?
Yeah, Charlie. Like when
I love
Charlie
Charlie.
sees, yeah. So when Charlie sees it, or Charlie witnesses it, or whatever, Charlie taps me. Mom, I just want you to know that person's looking at you weirdly or whatever, but don't worry. And then Charlie's the one to go up and get in the person's face. Do you have a problem with my mom? Is that why you're looking at her? Maybe you should quit. And so yeah, my kids are fiercely defensive of me, publicly and in person. So I most of the time I never become aware of it. But if I never become aware of it, then how can it affect you?
True. That is awesome about Charlie. She is just the coolest kid. I didn't know who she was, and, one night when I was doing the cross posting, because Sarah was out of town, and she asked me to step in for her, which I always appreciate the opportunity. She said, "Oh, Charlie came up with something. Be sure to add it." And I said, "Who's Charlie?" And she said, "Oh, Charlie is, Wendy's daughter." And I said, "Oh my gosh." And then she did that live with you where she was talking about her Girl Scout, badge that she was gonna be working on. That was and she's just adorable. She's got such a beautiful spirit and heart, you should be very proud. I know you're very proud. Okay, so what's the one thing you really want your readers to know about the whole author life hustle? That unless you're a writer, you don't know what it's like.
There's nothing that I can there's nothing I can answer to that question. I literally the essence of writing to me is it falls into one of two categories. It's either an emotional expression or it's an analytical expression. I've been a software developer for a very long time, and I have an analytical brain. I can churn out Golang and Python and C code without thinking about it. It's just robotic. I mean, that's mathematical expression, but
Yes.
writing is just emotional expression. So if all you can do is express yourself emotionally, which by the way, I have to tell you, if you're able to express yourself emotionally, you're doing a lot better than most of the people out there because emotional vulnerability, emotional intelligence, and emotional expression are things that a lot of people have a very difficult time with. But if you can express your emotion and you can write to do it, you should do it.
Well, that's quite an encouragement because some people think unless they've done all the classes or the schooling or any of that, they can't really write. But you're right. If people can express it, they need to do it. It's very important.
I
Get
look,
this energy out.
Steinbeck never used words greater than 5 letters. He had a viscerally difficult time with punctuation, and he wrote huge run on sentences that were a complete and total wreck. For that matter, an even more current case is my friend Jeff Tiedrick, who does not know how to punctuate worth a shit at all, nor does he know how to capitalize stuff in the right way. He just knows how to express himself emotionally and do it in a way that attracts people to read it. I would tell anybody, just write a bunch of shit down and then put it somewhere. And eventually, people that want to read what you have to say will actually read what you have to say.
That's beautiful. That's great advice. So, Wendy, just from the short time, the privilege I have of getting to know you, I do know that you've had the history in software, and we've talked about you blasting out C code and Python, and all the work you've done in security and all those kind. And it's amazing. But when did you start writing? When did your writing career begin?
Oh God, years ago.
Was it?
Writing began, yeah, writing began in my academic life. As a matter of fact, um, if Gizmo's mom were here, she would tell you, um, when she and I started dating, I was very poetic. I wrote lyrics and poems viscerally and extensively when I was much younger. Um, so as a person with, I hate to say this, but as a person with extensive emotional and physical abuse history, writing things was a way to compartmentalize those experiences, um, because I could write it down and put it somewhere where it couldn't be found, and I could try to compartmentalize those feelings. And so, again, that goes back to emotional intelligence. If you have emotional intelligence, if you have the ability to communicate emotionally, then you should write. And I do not give a shit how old you are, um, or how young you are, or whatever. But if you have that emotional intelligence, you have that emotional expression ability, you should write. Even if you're doing it for yourself and you're just going to fill up notebook after notebook after notebook and then shove them in a closet somewhere, you should do that.
So, was there one point where, like, a bell went off, or I'm sure there wasn't, but was there one point where a bell went off when you said, "I'm a writer now," or "I'm gonna write now," or, what was the linear path, or was there a linear path to get from where you were as an academic writing poetry and things that you were writing to where you are now, producing all this amazing content on a daily basis?
Oh God, that's easy. The Wonkette crew. So, what I had done, I had started on Substack a little over a year ago, and I started on Substack as a reader, and I was reading, ingesting random stuff, and somebody wrote something, and I don't remember who it was, but it was an article about it was a it was a pagan article. No,
Oh,
no, no,
really?
no. It was a queer article,
Okay.
and people were asking, like, uh, what are we going to do if we have to leave the country or whatever? And it was like, oh, you want to understand how to emigrate to another country? Oh, that's easy. And so I wrote this big article about, like, if you're a queer person and you would want to emigrate to another country, here's like the top 10 countries that you would want to target. Oh, and by the way, here is all of the requirements that you would have to satisfy.
Wow.
Yeah, to emigrate there. So one of them was the UK, another one was Canada, another one was Costa Rica, yada yada, Mexico even. And so there's a Wonkat author named Crip Dyke
Yeah.
who, yeah, she read that post and she sent me a DM and she said, "Hey, I just read your immigration bit," and I was like, "Oh, well, thank you. I mean, I really just cobbled it together, but I felt like that was information that people would want to know." And she was like, "Oh, well, I'm going to tell you. I think you should keep doing that." And so,
Yes. Yes. I saw you on Wonkat. In fact, I subscribe to Wonkat. I subscribe to you. Of course, I'm in the collective. So, yeah, I've seen a lot of your stuff. Do you have easy access to a link about that story? Because I bet
oh
people
God,
today.
I can dig that story up. It's paywalled by now,
Oh,
but
it is
uh,
paywall? Okay.
oh, but
Well,
I can definitely unpaywall it.
no, I think any of your subscribe. I didn't even know you wrote that. I've been on Substack, but I've only been really working with you and Sarah and some of your wonderful people for, I guess, about 6 months now. So I probably didn't see that one.
Oh, keep asking your questions. I'll get to it eventually.
Okay, okay. So you've mentioned a bunch of philosophers you like. You've mentioned a few writers, both on Substack. You talked about Steinbeck and his very limited vocabulary, I guess is a good way to say that. Who are your favorite writers?
Oh gosh, that's easy. So again, so the humanists, so Swift and Jonathan Swift and Voltaire. From a fictional perspective, though, um, I have a list. I
Well, what's
ooh,
your list?
I have a list. Um, let me get to my list. So from a science fiction perspective, I'm a huge. I know this is going to sound weird. I'm a huge Dick fan. Philip
Oh
K.
yeah,
Dick.
yeah.
I think Philip K. Dick was a brilliant. science fiction author. Um, and then from a growth perspective, so if you're a queer person
Hmm.
and coming into a space where you're trying to identify your queer identity or you're trying to understand yourself, uh, Jeffrey Marsh. Jeffrey Marsh wrote a book called How to Be You, and I think that's like a book everyone should read about being themselves. Um, so then let's see. Uh, uh, R.A. Salvatore as a fantasy author, but that's because of the Dark Elf, Drix Jordan, who happens to be my favorite character. There was a science fiction officer named Barrington J. Bailey from the late 70s. Huge fan. Jack Chalker, Vance, Clark, Herbert, and definitely Ursula K. Le Guin are all classical sci-fi authors, of which I am a huge fan. And then almost all of the classics. So Dickens. Um, I people laugh about this. I make a habit of reading the Divine Comedy once a year. I commit to reading the Divine Comedy from cover to cover. So Purgatorio, Paradiso, and the Inferno. Um, but that's mainly because of artistic expression more than just pleasure reading. Um, but here's the thing: I have this disease, and people don't understand it. There's a funny bit about it. So the disease is this: it doesn't matter what book it is. If I pick it up and I read the first 5 pages of the book obsessively and under no pretense of any other condition, I have to finish it. It doesn't matter what it is. So a rather hilarious joke about this is that in college, one of my friends went down to the grocery store and bought the trashiest, most overtly sexual Harlequin romance novel
Yes.
and then tore the covers off and put it on the coffee table in the commons area that I lived. And I walked out one day and I picked it up and I was like, oh, what's this? There's no cover on it. All right, I'll start flipping through it. And I got through 5 pages of it and then I couldn't stop. I had to obsessively finish it. I will tell you, like halfway through the book, I was like, because he put his big rugged hands on top of her love mat. It's almost clearly pornographic, and I couldn't stop reading it. And um, so that's the thing. So here's
Does
the
that
deal.
have a name? Does that disease have a name?
Uh, like I don't know, like maybe it's a weird parallel to echolalia.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Echolalia is the desire to repeat things that happened in culture. Um, so here you go. So the first 3 articles I wrote on Substack, and I did an introduction about being a druid. So I did an article about introducing a druid's path. And here's the hilarious thing. I only got 15 views out of it.
Oh no. That's
And so,
heartbreaking.
yeah, I only got 15 views out of it. It's my first post ever. Here, I'll drop that into the
But
chat.
actually 15 is pretty good for a first post. Some people get like no, nothing. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, there you go. But then, the one I wrote after that, uh, was, um, was the first Druid meditation that I'd ever written. And here it was on December 3rd, which it was a meditation for the beginning of Yule. And so this one is actually pretty. This one too is um, uh, you have to sort of. But then the one that Cryptite read was this one, and this was the one that did it. This was the one I only got 4 views out of it, and uh, uh, biofuel use and how biofuel use is done in California. I only got 4 views out of it, but Cryptite made a comment on it, and that was the one, or didn't comment on it, sent me a DM about it. And that was the one where she said, you need to keep writing. You should keep writing things.
Well,
Um,
thank you, Cryptite. Very nice of you to recognize Wendy's talent. Otherwise, we might not have it. So, Cryptite, wherever you are, I think they're in the collective. Isn't she in the collective?
yeah, I make sure that Sarah reposts. Yeah, you guys should be reposting.
Yeah, we
Pervert,
are. She's on the she's on the
pervert
list. Yeah, yeah. She's on the list. Yeah.
yeah. But there was like after that, like I did a pay gap analysis for economic disparities in queer culture. Um, and I got 46 views out of that, and I thought I was rocking it.
Oh,
Like,
well, that's
oh
good.
my god, nearly 50 people are reading my articles. Holy shit, I need to do this.
I'm lucky if I get 50 people to read my articles now, and I've been writing on Substack for a year, and I've been writing forever. So that's really impressive. Very, very impressive. I'm so glad you're doing it. So I only have one question left. Who do you wish who matters the most to you that read your work? Which kind of segues from your 50 views. So who do you really want to read your work?
Who do I really want to read my work? Um, that's a type of person, not a specific person.
Okay.
So at its core, the one person I want to read the stuff that I write, I'm going to be selfish by saying this, is my child Gizmo.
Oh, okay.
But I have my reasons for that. But at a wider body of angle, the actual answer to that question is people that want to learn. And the reason that I say that is this. Um, I live by, as an IT professional, I live by 6 rules. But the first 3 of those rules are life rules that everybody should follow. And those life rules are basically, I want to know everything that is known. I want to know everything that everyone knows. And if everyone wants to know what I know, then I'll gladly tell them. And so, because the sharing of knowledge universally and the spreading of knowledge universally is a paramount activity that must happen universally and across all spectrums.
Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense to me. Um, I didn't have any other more appropriate for what we're doing here with this new feature of scripts and musings, but we're almost at the hour. But I want to ask you one last question that's not on the list. Would you please explain to people your vision for creating the collective of many and what you're trying to accomplish? Because it's really a loving gift to all the people, all the writers, and to Substack. So would you please talk about that
So the
further?
whole purpose, yeah. So originally, the purpose behind the collective was to basically attract attention. So the reason the collective exists is because one of the metrics that Substack uses to track um, generating activity against articles that are generated on Substack is cross posting. So, cross posting, how many times an article has been cross posted, registers in their metric data, and that increases the likelihood that those cross posts will appear somewhere else in the algorithm. So, from an algorithmic perspective, the algorithm is very simple. So, like the currently, the 4 big ones are cross posting, commenting, live sessions that heart. So, when you see people hearting your live sessions, that increases your benefit in the algorithm. And then finally, your content. So, your note and your long form content. So, the more times an article gets cross posted means more times that an article becomes visible. And that includes restacks and quotes and everything else. So if you have an article and it gets restacked by somebody or a series of people, it gets cross-posted by a person or a series of people, and then it gets commented on by a person or a series of people, then that increases your visibility in the algorithm. And so literally, yeah, the entire purpose behind the collective was to cross-post other authors to increase their visibility. Now, ultimately, I also put um, my Google AdSense account that gets externally funded into the collective. So there are Google ads that generate against the collective, which increase the overall visibility of all of the authors in it. But
Oh, wow.
the other reason I did it was because there are all these publications that people read, and people miss an entire subset of Substack because they don't know where to find that eclectic nature. And so if you find the collective and then you read the articles that are cross posted in the collective, um, it becomes easier for you to find the kind of content that you do or do not want to read. And the beauty about the collective is this: it doesn't thrive on people who subscribe. It's literally an aggregator. So all it does is aggregate articles written by all slew of people.
That's
So
brilliant.
when you click on an article in the collective, you're going to their publication. Do you want to sign up for their publication? You can. You don't, you don't. But that collective connected nature of publications and the variation across all spectrums means that if you're looking for that aggregated data, you can find it in one place.
Well, it's really great, and I really appreciate and you know what? Before I got involved with Sarah, because Sarah was, my connection well, you and Sarah, um, a lot of the people on there I hadn't read before, and because sometimes I help Sarah with it, and I'm doing the reposting, anytime I repost, I will stop and read the entire piece that I'm reposting, and then I'll go and I'll personally restack it, and sometimes I'll repost it to my own publication because I really think it has value. So it's really a brilliant, brilliant idea. We are at the top of the hour, but you know what? You do a really cool closing on all of your talks. You do a really awesome closing at the end. So could I please ask you to do the close?
Oh gosh, of course.
And thank you very
I
much for your time.
I will give you a very special one even.
Oh, thank you.
Um, so Albert Camus is a brilliant philosopher, and he says the only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion. And what this says is that Camus understood that we've always known in the margins freedom isn't granted by institutions or earned through respectability, but claimed through the absolute refusal to be diminished. And as a result, we who are not diminished become the very essence of that freedom that exists in the world.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you very much. And thank you for, including me in the collective. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to do the scripts and musings. I think it's a brilliant idea, and I'm looking forward to doing it every week. And are you going to share who our next guest is, or will we keep that a surprise?
Oh no, you're going to tell everybody who the next guest is
Okay, so I am
because
very
he's in here.
I am very pleased to announce that our next guest for next Thursday, at the same time, is Brandon Elrich. Brandon Elrich is so gay. He's one of my absolute favorites. I was just telling Wendy before we started that one of the first lives he ever did, in fact, I think it's the first live he ever did, was with me, where we talked about his adorable cats. So I'm very excited to get Brandon here next week and talk to him. And every week we will have another writer from the collective. So thank you, Wendy. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you so much. And that's it. So goodbye.